Good evening everyone, and welcome to the extraordinary meeting of the Executive this evening. And thank you very much indeed for coming out and also for submitting so many questions this evening. So I'm going to start with the first agenda item, which is apologies, item 39.
Chairman, I've got apologies from Councillors Richard Delinsky, Pauline Hellier-Simons, Philip Murphy and Simon Weeks.
Thank you very much indeed. Next item on the agenda is declarations of interest. Thank you very much indeed. So moving on to public question time, and there's a period of 30 minutes for public questions this evening in line with the Constitution. And the first question we've got this evening is from Annette Medhurst.
Thank you.
If you'd like to.
As part of the consultation exercise of the removal of school crossing patrollers, local schools were contacted, presumably in order to reach a wide distribution of people who regularly use the services. Meadow Nursery School on Murray Road, who provide a statutory service in early years education, was not contacted, nor was there a tick box on the consultation for parents to state that their child attended Meadow Nursery. Why were early years settings not considered important voices for the local authority to seek out their opinion during the consultation process?
Thank you, Annette. The purpose of the school crossing patrol service is to assist the safe journey of school-aged children through providing a safe crossing facility to enable them to access schools. Early years children should be accompanied by appropriate adults with the benefit of new 24/7 crossing facilities. I also understand that many preschool children attend nurseries for half-day sessions, and a new proposal to assist them and their appropriate adults to cross the road safely at the end of the morning sessions and the beginning of the afternoon. I have been unable to find why you weren't contacted, but my understanding is all of the LEA schools were contacted.
Do you have a supplementary question?
So on that basis, if you're saying that local authorities settings were contacted, but early year settings aren't for the reasons that you outline, why are they not? You talk about the safety for lots of people. Why are those individuals not so considered? I don't really see why that group of individuals aren't considered to have an important voice in this type of exercise.
I didn't say that early years settings. I didn't say that early years settings were not contacted. The only one I'm aware of that wasn't contacted is yours, and I believe that in the assessment of the requirements that early year settings have been taken into account in the design and the considerations undertaken by the Council.
Thank you very much indeed for your question. The next question this evening is from Alexandra Fraser.
Can you please advise under what conditions in the consultation that was carried out, what parents and residents could have said for a school to keep their school crossing patroller even alongside a new crossing?
Thank you, Alexander, for your question. If the consultation responses had demonstrated that there had been factors of which the Council was unaware that would undermine the ability to enable safe crossing of the roads close to school crossing patroller locations, this would have resulted in the Council considering alternative proposals. However, this did not happen through the consultation process.
Do you have a supplementary question?
Yes. We want to encourage people to walk to school. If this was a consultation just about installing a crossing, why was there not an option about keeping the lollipop ladies?
Last year we had a number of schools where they had already had a crossing, and they had crossing patrollers on them, and we consulted with their removal, and they were removed last year, and there's no evidence of anything getting worse. In fact, the accident statistics have got better. So I don't see anything from our experience of the removal of the crossing patrollers last year who were on fixed sites that would imply that we couldn't do it again.
The next question this evening is from Sally Cairns.
My particular concern about replacing the school crossing patroller at the Murray Road site with a fixed crossing is that whilst the school crossing patroller can keep everyone moving, With the fixed crossing, I think there'll be times either when you have a big build-up of people on the pavement, which is fairly narrow, or the traffic will queue back quite a long way, in both those circumstances leading to safety issues. And at the scrutiny committee meeting, it seemed that the key point of the consultation process was seen as being to try to draw out those sorts of safety points. However, the actual question asked was much more general. It was, do you have any comments on the proposed changes to safe school crossings? I personally think that's one of the reasons why the consultation wasn't particularly meaningful. And I think if you seriously want to get people's views on on the proposed changes, we need to see exactly what those crossings are going to look like, and in particular whether there's going to be any associated changes to the pavements or the parking arrangements. And my specific question is, in the light of the concerns raised, how are the plans for the Murray Road site going to be taken forward?
Thank you, Sally, for your question. Having undertaken detailed feasibility studies, the Council is satisfied that a permanent formal crossing can be provided in the vicinity of the school site that would not compromise the safety of school children. However, I understand the concerns raised and will work with our Highways Department and Transport officers to consider any additional measures that could be put in place to improve the access arrangements at Murray Road. This issue will be dealt with in addition to the issues raised by the removal of the school crossing for service and responses to the consultation. And I would add that I have particularly taken care on this site, including visiting it. I have consulted with some of my local members, and I have listened at the debate that we had and all of the questions and comments that have been made. And I have taken those on board in considering this decision, and I have taken them on board in consideration of other matters that may be required to make this a better and safer access to the school. So I think I've done that. I will continue to do that. I'm continuing to be committed to providing safe access to this school, and I'm aware of the issues that have been raised.
Thank you. Do you have a supplementary?
So I very much appreciate that you are taking the issues at this site seriously. However, I think the overwhelming message of the consultation was that the majority of people did not agree with the department's decision that it was a safe thing to do. And so my question now is, in going forward, you're saying, well, it's going to be something a bit different to what we said anyway. And if you have a requirement to consult on significant changes to the safety arrangements out of school, are you therefore going to do another consultation? Are you going to enable the people who use the site every day to have some input into whether the proposed changes are actually going to be adequate for the vast numbers of people that cross that road?
The main consideration I have had is that the proposal was for a zebra crossing, and I've been persuaded that the possibility I need to look at is a puffin crossing. I don't consider that to be a major change. There have been issues raised around car parking, particularly at the end of Oxford Road. I don't, that is different. That is a different matter and is separate from the school crossing patrolling situation. And if changes to the parking regimes are required, they will follow the normal council processes. But I am aware of the situation. I have listened. I will continue to listen. But I think that the principles that we have outlined previously are still valid.
Thank you very much for your questions. The next question is from Alexa Stott.
I asked the question standing in my name.
Thank you, Alexa. While I attended the site on the 23rd of July, the site had already been fully considered by professional qualified highways and transportation officers at this point. This had informed the feasibility study of the crossing facility at Murray Road to enable the council to be satisfied that a safe crossing could be provided in the vicinity of the school crossing patrol site. I have also been in close contact with the relevant ward member who knows the area very well about this proposal, and he has informed the decision. While the council has already...
You never consulted with me, and I'm the relevant ward member.
While the council has already identified a safe crossing design for the Murray Road site, I am aware of the concerns that have been raised and will work with ward members, the school itself and our highways experts to consider any additional measures that may be put in place to improve the access arrangements at Murray Road. I will also consider revisiting the school at an appropriate time.
Do you have a supplementary question? Thank you. The next question is from Diane Birch.
when you had your, oops, Daisy, sorry.
Right. The original 2015 decision was taken without an underpinning Equality Impact Assessment, an EIA, and the subsequent April 2018 EIA did not contain detailed information about consultation with specific groups and did not reflect the individual circumstances relating to each of the proposed crossing sites. An EIA usually refers to discrimination on the basis of race, gender or disability. As we are concerned with school crossing patrollers who deal with children, assuming a more detailed EIA needs to be undertaken, may I suggest that these younger residents are considered on the grounds of age discrimination?
Thank you, Diane. Under equalities legislation, the Council has a duty to integrate considerations of equality impact and has applied this in the decision to remove the discretionary school crossing patroller service. A single equalities impact assessment to inform this decision to remove the school crossing patroller service was appropriate in line with this duty. The design standards of each crossing incorporate the needs of all users, including all of these groups protected under the equalities legislation, which are race, age, gender, disability, ethnicity, sexual orientation, religion and belief, gender reassignment, pregnancy and maternity. This is further tested through the safety audit process. Each of the crossings has been assessed on the basis of their individual circumstances to ensure that they are safe and fit for purpose for all residents who may use the crossing. The purpose of the school crossing patroller service is to assist the safe journey of school-aged children through providing a safety crossing facility to enable them to access schools. Early years children should be accompanied by appropriate adults who will have the benefit of the new 24/7 crossing facilities.
Do you have a supplementary?
Although we have heard many councillors, although we have heard many councillors, including yourself, say that they wish to implement safe crossings, can you please say why you believe that static crossings that are unmanned can possibly be safer at school times than those with lollipop men and ladies currently on them? And tell us where your statistics come from for such a sweeping, generalised statement.
About 15 years ago, we implemented a government programme called Safer Routes to School, where we was throughout the country, and we implemented putting crossings at most of our schools at the time. And those crossings have been in for at least the last 10 years. And so we have extensive experiences of school fixed crossings at schools, as well as all of the fixed crossings that exist around the country. These are designed nationally, and the evidence in working is that they are safe, and therefore I'm satisfied with that.
Are they safe there?
The next question this evening is from Helen Shaw.
Are there any budget implications from correct procedure not being followed initially? And if there are, where will any shortfall come from?
The Council has undertaken due diligence in assessing the financial implications of the proposal to remove the school crossing patroller service and has correctly assessed the impact on the Council's budget. The maintenance of the crossings will not have a significant impact on revenue budgets, as the additional crossings only represent less than 5% of the increase in the number of crossings in the borough. The financial implications of the call-in process has had budgetary implications, as school crossing patrollers will potentially have to operate for longer periods at school crossing patroller points. This will be met through the revenue budget, which will be diverted from other service areas. The process has also impacted on council staffing resources, but the cost of this has not been quantified. I believe the correct procedures have been followed. However, as a result of the call-in, there will be additional costs in the 2018-19 budget.
Do you have a supplementary question?
So is that going to impact on the council being able to provide other things in the area?
In theory, possibly. In practice, probably not.
Thank you. The next question this evening is from Keith Marvin.
Thank you. My question is addressed to was addressed to the leader of the council, and it runs like this. In the light of the wide-ranging discussions held at the Overview and Scrutiny call-in meeting, can I ask whether consideration has been given to a horses for courses approach that would allow, for example, the school crossing patroller to be retained at Murray Road?
I think it's being passed to me, this one. I would consider retaining the school crossing patroller if the design and safety issues arising from the crossing design indicate that a safe crossing could not be provided.
Do you have a supplementary?
Not sure I really understood the question, but I'll follow that up in due course. Well, I'm disappointed that previous leaders have considered horses for courses as being an appropriate thing to use. But what I would like to ask, and it seems to me that the council is in a hole at the moment, and if you're in a hole, there are two things you can do. You're doing the wrong thing, you keep digging. Overview and Scrutiny have done you a favour. They've provided you with a ladder to get out of this hole by saying there are other options. And I'd like to ask, in the light of this coming document, proposed Borough Plan 2025, gripping document. I've only reached page 7, I have to say, so far. The vision is wrong, I can tell you that. What I want to know is how page 7 refers to the key areas of focus for Woking Borough. What I want to understand from you, and that includes support at vulnerable times. Do you feel that a school crossing patroller provides support at vulnerable times?
When there isn't a fixed crossing, yes.
Thank you. And I hope that you get to the end of it and put in your full response. And if you think there's a better vision statement, I look forward to reading it.
It'll be longer.
And the next question, we don't have an answer for this evening. We'll give you a written response, but if you'd like to stand up and ask it, it's just it didn't come through the system, unfortunately. But if you'd like to get up and answer it,
Thank you for letting me ask this question. I did submit it on the 13th of September, but apparently it's got lost in your system somewhere. The question was to the Executive Member for Highways and Transport, and it's the item on school crossing patrol service. And my question was, what site assessments have the Council undertaken at each individual location, such as pedestrian counts between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m, corresponding traffic flows between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m, during an average day and month, as recommended by the Department for Transport's local transport notes, because I am unable to find any evidence whatsoever in your report. Thank you.
My understanding from what I've seen is we have done exactly that.
thank you very much indeed. We'll give you something in writing if you prefer.
I would like a full response to that, please. Thank you.
Okay, now moving on to the next item this evening, item 42, which is member question time, and there's 20 minutes allocated to this. There are a number of member question times that members may wish to ask the question standing in their name, but of course if you wish to ask the full question, then please do. The first question this evening is from Councillor Gary Cowan.
Thank you. Councillor Ferris, a member question on the 26th of July, challenged the court at random £600 per side for upkeep. He also challenged why there was no replacement costs. My question is, including school crossings, how many pedestrian crossings in total has the Borough Council got, and are they all budgeted at £600 per annum for maintenance?
Thank you, Gary. As of September 2018, there are 61 controlled pedestrian crossings in the borough that are managed by the council. Each crossing has the following budget for the purpose of ongoing maintenance. Telecommunications charges £57, electrical power £100, routine maintenance and cleaning £419, total cost £576.
Do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, thank you for that. I would say there's as over 20 years as a borough councillor, I've seen many call-ins, and I must say that when I look at this one, the 3.5 full pages with looks like 28 initial elements raised, I've never seen so many for a call-in in my whole period as the council. Just randomly picking on some, no consultation with ward members.
So do you have a question?
Yes, I have. I could go on, but I won't. As I'm being cut short, should we not be worried by this council's or this executive's views on consultation when 3.5 pages worth of comment and observations and rejection from the Orping and scrutiny, referring it back to here, has taken place? It's just, I think all the public here should listen to this very, very carefully. As I see it, there is no note of consultation taken by this Borough Council.
Let me answer that. If you actually read the recommendations from Orping scrutiny, they don't actually challenge or say that we should not replace school crossing controllers with fixed crossings. They are covered. There are 3 items that I'll talk about later. We consulted in 2017 on phase 1, we consulted in 2018 on phase 2. As I have repeatedly said, the key piece here is to put in safe crossings at these school sites. I have actually asked for improvements to the crossings that were originally proposed at a number of sites, which is why they haven't currently been built, and I will continue to look at and to take cognizance of the need for safe crossings at all of these school sites. So I dispute your statements, Gary.
No doubt members will do.
The next question this evening is from Councillor Ferris.
Good evening. Before I start my question, Anthony, you don't understand the call-in. We cannot change a decision with a call-in. We can only question the way you've gone about it, and that is what we have done. So there is obviously no recommendation from the overview scrutiny to change, because we can't, and I think you should know that. Right, I go into my question. At the call-in meeting on 3rd of September, Councillor Potter clearly indicated he had given authority for the works on the pedestrian crossings to continue after the call-in was submitted on the 31st of July. At the meeting, it was established that Councillor Pollock, as a single executive member, did not have that authority and no IEND was issued. Later in the evening, Josie Ragg confirmed that she gave the authority. I have since discovered that this authority was given retrospectively on the 17th of August on her return from holiday. I therefore wish to know who authorised or allowed the works to continue in the absence of Josie Ragg to cover the period 31st of July through to 16th of August, as a call-in submission put the decision taken on the 26th of July executive on hold until the issue was resolved.
Thank you, Lindsay. I'll take on board what you said previously. The Director of Customer and Localities has the delegated responsibility of authorised works through the Council's capital programme. In the absence of the Director, the Assistant Director has this delegated authority passed to her. As the current Director was on annual leave when the call-in submission was received by the Council, the Assistant Director authorised the continuation of the works on the pedestrian crossings, having discussed this with the executive member. And I suspect that's what I was referring to, that I was asked by the relevant officer to agree with their view that we should carry on with the work.
I'm sorry, I'm going to have to query that. The answer I had from Josie Ragg was she retrospectively authorised the decision, not that her assistant director had authorised in her absence. She specifically said retrospectively. So there is a mistake or an error here, because the director would not say respectively. Respectively means to me either nobody made a decision or somebody made a decision who did not have the authority to do it. So why would she use those words? So I question that veracity answer.
Maybe I can answer your question, Lauren. I have spoken to Josie myself. I have raised this issue with her. I have asked her if she's comfortable in the answer that I have given you, and she has told me that she is. And therefore, as far as she is concerned, what she has said to me is that the process has been properly followed. I can't answer for your conversations with her, I can only answer for my conversations with her.
Got mine in writing.
May I suggest that you follow this up, both of you, after this meeting? Thank you very much. Okay, the next question this evening is from Councillor Shepherd de Bay. Rochelle.
When precisely and by whom was the decision made to make the school crossing patrols redundant? The only place I can find is a note about finding an alternative source of funding in the 2015 medium-term financial plan. Doesn't seem to be an IMED about that either.
The formal notification was made on Monday the 11th of June 2018, after which statutory staff consultation took place.
Do you have a supplementary?
I was told that the original decision was actually made in a Tory party meeting rather than by an executive member that this was going to happen, and this was the original decision as well.
I'm simply saying to you, I'll repeat what I said. The formal letters of notifying the staff of redundancy were made on Monday the 11th of June. Any other discussions aren't valid.
I will also follow up with the chief executive. Sorry, I'm two meetings at the same time. So.
Thank you. Okay, the next question this evening is from Councillor Imogen Shepherd-Green.
Right. As part of the calling meeting, we received all of the comments that were sent to us as response to the WBC consultation on these crossings. The people who responded to this consultation thought they were being consulted on whether lollipop ladies should be replaced with automated crossings or not. Our highways engineer in our calling meeting made it clear that the only thing that they were looking at in the responses were legitimate safety considerations regarding the physical installation of the crossings. In the subsequent report provided to the executive, this consultation, it shows that concerns about bad parking, bad driving, children's safety, etc. were all disregarded. Very clearly, the rare visit from CPE officers is not enough to replace the daily presence of a school crossing patroller. Two of the schools who had their school crossing patroller removed last year have now had to install special holding pens at their gates because of the safety concerns for their children. We certainly do not feel all of the public was listened to in this consultation. Please can you advise what is being done to satisfy all of the concerns that the consultation raised before the school crossing patrols are actually removed?
Right. In line with the Council's consultation protocol, consultation was undertaken about the removal of school crossing patroller service. The responses were reported to and fully considered by the Council's executive. Prior to this, in consultation with officers, I visited and reviewed each of the crossing sites in detail, which resulted in 2 crossings being changed from zebra to puffin and 1 site being provided with a zebra crossing where previously no facility was proposed. In line with the protocol, other relevant information was also considered by the Council Executive, including highway safety issues, financial implications and wider benefits of the proposed new crossings facilities for all residents. The Executive considered that the safety benefits of the new crossings to serve all residents throughout the day and year outweighed the concerns raised by the respondents, many of which related to poor driving, which are not factors that the school crossing patrol service is designed to address. In line with the adopted consultation protocol, the Council is committed to listening to its residents, but in line with this document it also acknowledges that consultation should not be the sole means by which information should be gathered when making a decision. This information is considered alongside other relevant evidence or information about an issue.
Do you have a supplementary?
Sure. According to our WBC consultation approach, we are supposed to consult, legally supposed to consult at the formative stages of change of service, which has been monitored. It's actually a legal requirement, which implies sufficient reasons supposed within intelligent consideration and response. I'd like to know when we're actually going to get consultation on the removal of the Lollipop Lady service, because this seems to be a consultation just about whether we should install a crossing or not.
No, this was a consultation in connection with the removal of the service and the replacement with safe crossings, safe crossings.
The next question this evening is from Councillor Helen Power.
Thank you. At the call-in on the 3rd of September, we heard that there had been only one quality impact assessment for all of the crossings. There appears to have been no consultation with disability groups or the schools about the needs of their children. Input from parents of children with additional needs has not been considered, even when they responded to the consultation. Hopefully you're aware that there are different types of disabilities that could be affected by this, including hearing, sight, mobility, learning disabilities, and cognitive processing disabilities, especially when dealing with children who will have not learned to compensate for these issues yet. As no location is the same, why have these assessments not been done on a location-by-location basis?
Thank you, Helen. Under equalities legislation, the Council has a duty to integrate considerations of equality impact and has applied this in the decision to remove the discretionary school crossing patroller service. Single equalities impact assessment to inform this decision to remove the school crossing patroller service was appropriate in line with this duty. The design standards of each crossing incorporate the needs of all users, including all of those groups protected under the equalities legislation: race, age, gender, disability, ethnicity, sexual orientation, religion and belief, gender reassignment, pregnancy and maternity. This is further tested through the safety audit process. Each crossing has been assessed on the basis of their individual circumstances to ensure they are safe and fit for purpose for all residents who may use the crossing.
Do you have a supplementary question?
In which case, why were the quality impact assessments not done earlier on in the process than April 2018?
The individual quality impact assessments were done during the design process, and that would be done earlier than April 2018, or they were commenced earlier than 2018. They're part of the design process. That would be included in the design process.
Thank you all very much for your questions this evening, both members and members of the public who have come out this evening, also representatives from schools, and also I know that we've got school crossing controllers in the audience as well this evening. So thank you very much indeed for coming out and putting in your questions. I know a lot of effort goes into putting those together and putting them in through Democratic Services. I'd also like to thank Opening Scrutiny Panel for their work on this particular issue, and also for Anthony, who has spent a great deal of time going out and about to all of the different sites, and his work on taking on this project halfway through and taking it on from another executive member. So without further ado, I'm going to ask Councillor Bath to present the call-in decision, please.
Thank you, Chair, and a very good evening to you all. The Overview and Scrutiny Management Committee, as you know, met on the 3rd of September, and it is a cross-party scrutiny committee. And I was very honoured and privileged to be chairing that committee on the 3rd of September. And I was also pleased that the decisions made by the committee on that day were fair and reasonable. And we were happy to report some of our findings back to the executive, and hence the reason why this particular meeting of the executive is actually here to talk about it. May I also reiterate the point made by Councillor Ferris that the purpose of the consideration was not to challenge the decision made by the executive, and I must stress that very, very carefully. But it was simply to actually scrutinise the procedures and processes used by the executive to make that decision. The scrutiny committee did find 3 areas where a review by the executive is recommended and prove beneficial for future years. And the areas were consultation, the business case, and the equality impact assessment, all relating to 2015. Consultation did take place in 2018, and business case is perhaps where there are some learning points where more information would be helpful. And Councillor Pollock has already answered the question about the equality impact assessment. So the recommendations are that the executive consider the recommendations made by the committee, and I look forward to their findings. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. I was just going to ask whether, before I ask Councillor Pollock to go through this report, whether executive members have any questions. Okay, so I'll start from the left. I'll start with Councillor Blumenthal.
Thank you. Have accidents increased at the 2017 sites where school crossing controllers were removed?
There's in fact been a reduction. There was in fact very low accident statistics in the first place, and they have reduced since the school crossing controls were removed.
Councillor Wilmington.
Given that the scrutiny call is all about process, Anthony, I wonder if you could just remind me what the process is, so I'm clear in my mind about what the process was to get to.
In 2015, we were looking at alternative sources of income because of the national picture of the issues with not only, well, mainly with government finances, but they then passed them down to us. And we were looking around to see whether we could find some sponsorship or some other sources of funding. The problem was that we could not transfer the employment of the school crossing controller because of their, we are the only people who could give them the rights to step out on the road in front of cars to stop cars in order to let the school crossing controllers across. Sorry, let me start again. In 2015, there was an early stage in the, it's now called austerity. The government had cut our income substantially from 2010. We were looking at ways we had to save money. We're looking at alternative sources of income to fund the school crossing controller service, but we couldn't find any, luckily. So in 2017, so 2015, 16, looking for, could we find another way of financing it? Couldn't do that. So 2017, we had to say, okay, no new money's coming forward. We had a number of crossings that already existed and school crossing controllers were on them, and decision was made and consultation was undertaken to remove those crossing controllers, which took place in 2017. As I've said, we assessed the impact of that, and there were reduction, no increases in accidents, there was actually a reduction. And so in 2018, we looked at removing, replacing effectively, removing the service and replacing the school crossing controllers with fixed crossings where they currently were. And we have consulted on that in accordance with our processes and procedures, and including the design aspects related to equality impact assessment. So I think 2015 is a little bit of a red herring, so I understand why it's there. The key dates are 2017 and 2018, when we undertook consultation and we followed the council procedures, which we have done.
Did you have a follow-up question?
I guess the million-dollar question to me, Anthony, is was safety compromised for cost savings?
No.
Councillor Norman Jorgensen.
Anthony, is there any evidence that fixed crossings are unsafe?
There's no evidence. In fact, there's probably evidence that they're safer, which I know may not be very welcome by other people here, but as I said, we put in a whole load of fixed crossings back under the Safer School project, and my understanding is that they are safer, and parents use them. In fact, in the committee, one of the members, Shai Dunis, said he walked his children up to school and he used a ordinary crossing. So he said it was particularly, he found it very safe and there wasn't an issue with it. So no, I don't think there's any evidence that they're not safe.
Okay. So just to follow up to that, some people say that school crossing patrollers take responsibility for bad parking and bad driving. How is that taken into account?
School crossing patrollers have authority from ourselves as the highway authority to step out of the road and stop cars to allow children to cross the road on their way to school. They, however, aren't police officers or parking attendants, and therefore don't have any statutory duty or statutory responsibility to undertake those roles, though they may sometimes seek to play that role. They actually have no authority to do so.
Before I take your question, I've got a bit of a follow-up to Norman's first question. If it's found that subsequently it proves that school crossing patrollers are required for a safer operation of fixed crossings, would school crossing patrollers be reintroduced?
I think we would have to seriously consider that because it would be necessary, but I do think that the design process would be a way to look at that first. So yes, but probably not necessarily, but certainly if it was demonstrated and proven, then of course.
I think the thing that attracts me about the school crossing provision, particularly the Pelican crossings, is that they're available all the time. And I'm wondering, Anthony, if you've got any examples of where you need an extended period where the Pelican crossings will actually be available, where a school crossing patroller wouldn't be.
Of course, as you rightly say, fixed crossings, whether Pelican or Zebra, are available all day. There are times at school, particularly for early years children who are leaving at lunchtime or coming in for an afternoon session, where these crossings will be relevant for them to use. If people are accessing schools in the evening or later, then they would be there to do so. If their children were at an after-school club or a breakfast club, then they could use them for that. So I do believe that these crossings will provide a safe solution for a wider range of children using the schools at all times of the day.
Just to follow up on that, didn't Richard have a special school in Woodley that was operating on the weekend as well that would help?
I think you're correct. Sorry, I think you're correct, and obviously school crossings would be there at weekends as well. But also, I think we're facing a situation where we are building more houses, we've got more cars on the road, there is increased traffic, and these crossings will be available for non-school children to use should they find it necessary. So again, I think it's an additional benefit for putting these in.
Councillor Norman Jorgensen.
At the end of this process, will there be a fixed crossing at every location where there has been a school crossing patrol?
Yes.
Any other questions? No? Okay. The recommendations that came from Obion Scrutiny on, not numbered, the pages. Yeah, they're on page, what would be 7 of the report. Please could you take us through those, Anthony, and talk to us about those?
The first one talks about the 2015 decision to remove the school crossing patrol that was taken prior to consultation. However, we didn't decide in 2015 to remove them, we decided to seek alternative sources of funding. The decision to remove the crossings was, as I said earlier, in 2 phases, 2017 for those school crossing controllers who operated on fixed crossings, and we consulted and went through all the right processes associated with that. And as I said earlier, we have evidence that accidents, though very low anyway, were even lower after their removal. And again, in 2018, we have consulted, we have gone through all the processes that we needed to do, and we arrived at our recommendation, which actually I have enhanced from a safety perspective, that I have asked for additional work on a number of sites to ensure this has been asked that every single school has a crossing, and that where I was concerned that the crossing, the zebra proposed perhaps wasn't the right answer, that a buffer crossing was better, I have asked for that to be designed. And particularly Murray Road, I've done a lot of work with paying attention to the issues and matters raised, and as I said, I will continue to visit the site at times and continue to talk to the head teachers around some of the issues that I think are relevant, as I am well aware of the pressures of that school. I think I said when I met you that when I was chairman of the education committee back in 97-8, when we went unitary, I visited both their schools, and I was struck by how many more children were going to those schools now than went then. So that's obviously something that needs to be taken into account. So I understand the comment made. I think consultation generally, I think perhaps there's things we have to learn from that, and I'm happy to take that away. There's always opportunities to reflect where the public have raised issues and concerns around the consultation process. I'm very happy to pick that up and try and incorporate it and do it better next time. In connection with the second recommendation, again, 2015 is a slight red herring.
Point of order, please. I was at the call-in. It lasted 3 hours or so. All the way through, it was mentioned, and the chairman of Overview Scrutiny is present, that the decision was made in 2015, and that was not challenged by anyone at that meeting from yourselves. And I would like to have a clear, it's a shame that the Overview Scrutiny wasn't recorded, because if it was recorded, we would clearly have heard that they were said at that meeting that the decision the first time the decision was made to do away with the school crossing patrollers was in 2015. And when we queried it to say that it only says that we're talking about sources of money, it was made clear to us at the call-in, because we were members of that committee, that that was where the decision was made to do away with the service. So I have to challenge the veracity of your answer, Anthony. It's a shame I don't have that recording, because I would play it back to you.
Well,
to clarify.
Then I'll clarify that separately, but as I said, the decision...
Page 43 of this papers says the request the executive review the original decision to remove the school crossing patrol was taken prior to consultation. So the call-in committee, the Overview and Scrutiny committee, were of the distinct opinion, which was not queried by anyone who came, that was what their original decision was made, and it is in the minutes. So you're telling me that we had 3.5 hours of a meeting where we were under the misapprehension that you made a decision in 2015 when you didn't. I have to really question the situation here, and I have to go to the chair of Overview and Scrutiny for him to comment, because he chaired the meeting and he wrote the recommendation, and he's in your group.
Let me just answer your issue. My recollection was that there was questions around the consultation process. There was design issues that started before the consultation process had been completed, and that was one of the issues around the issue around consultation and decisions around before the consultation had been completed. We also had issues around the issue of redundancy notices before and you can't have redundancy notices where weren't issued in 2015, as you well know. And as you said, you looked at, included in the papers that were submitted to that meeting was a copy of the MTFP from the relevant year, which did talk about new sources of income, new sources of funding. So, you know, if I have not answered questions right now,
but it's in the papers. Page 43 of your documentation tonight.
So, Lindsay, you've made your point, and it's on page 43. I'm now going to ask...
I've asked the Chairman overview.
I'm going to ask Councillor Parry to make a comment, but we have answered one of the questions earlier, which talks about, clarifies this point, I think, in terms of talking about alternative sources of funding, which is not about removing, but it's saying keeping them, but with alternative sources of funding, which I think clarifies that point about that decision in 2015. But I'm going to turn to Councillor Parry, and then I'll go back to Anthony Clark.
Thank you, Chair. The recommendation B, which relates to Councillor Ferris's question, it is as it reads. And I agreed that particular recommendation, and it was simply to do with the underpinning business case, and that the report contained not sufficient information on the current costs of the service. So the recommendation was to review that and perhaps make available that additional information.
I think the issue is you've raised the issue of the business case. Lindsay raised the issue of the business case, and my answer to that is that, you know, the executive report had the information around the business case in it, and as the decision to cease the service is only made after the executive makes the decision, which was made on 24th of July. We hadn't made the decision prior to that. We may have considered it, we may have been consulting on it, we may have been looking at other things, but the decision is not made until the executive actually makes the decision. Maybe I've used slightly loose language that I shouldn't have done, but the fundamental issue is until the 27th and the 24th of July, it was a proposal, it wasn't a decision. And as I said earlier, we have the business case around the removal was linked to the decision that we made for the removal of the service. And as I said earlier, we've done this in two phases. Phase one was removing the school crossing patrollers from those sites where crossings already existed, which was done last year, and the second phase was done in this time scale between January and July this year.
And I think that answers why you were asking for a business case at that point. Would you like to move on to the next?
Yeah. The final piece is the equalities impact assessment, where I've answered a number of questions in connection with that. The key piece is that the decision was to remove the service, the equality impact assessment was done on that, and that each of the designs incorporates all the features relating to the equalities impact assessment of each individual site. And therefore I believe that we have abided by the requirements of the Equalities Impact Assessment legislation.
Okay. Can I ask executive members if you have any further questions on any of the points that were put forward by Councillor Parry Barr? Okay.
May I raise another point of order, please? In your discussions, you have said that the period of having the pedestrian crossings replaced and it being safer. DFT standards for this is 3 years, so therefore you haven't got statistical information that is recognised by the DFT. You may have local information which covers approximately 1 year. So can you comment on that, please?
Yes, I can, because we have 61 crossings in the borough, and therefore the evidence is from those that these crossings are safe.
We're specifically talking about where
Lindsay,
controllers are being replaced, not...
Lindsay, I'm going to have to stop you because you've had your opportunity to take questions through this executive process at the first meeting. You've also had an opportunity to go to overview and scrutiny, and you've had a question at the beginning of this meeting, and also your point of order as well. So thank you very much indeed for your challenge on all this matter. But now I must ask if executive members have any further questions. Okay. So the first point is around consultation, and I welcome your recommendations on that. And I think it's clear that in future we can continue to look at how we do our consultations so that they can be really meaningful. Obviously we've got one very significant consultation out at the moment, which is of course the borough plan, and I'm grateful for you to pick that up this evening. We can always look to how we can make those more meaningful for all of our residents. We should always strive.
Try and implement that.
Well, we should always strive to have really good consultations that is meaningful. The second one is about the business case, and thank you very much for your attention to that. And again, I think it's clear that in everything that we do, a business case should be presented that is very clear for all of our residents to understand. And regarding the EIAs, all of our work should have accessible EIA statements to it. And I'll just hand over to Anthony Clark to summarise.
Thank you. As I said earlier, I think that we have complied with the criticisms that you have raised. I said earlier, I'm very happy to take away the issues around consultation, because as Charlotte said, I think we can always learn more about that, and there are issues where I'm happy to take that away. I do think the equalities impact assessment we have dealt with. So I think on balance, we have dealt with the main thrust of your criticisms, and therefore I'm happy to, having taken on board your concerns about the process, I would ask the executive that their original decision is confirmed.
Thank you very much. And I know that you want to continue to work with everyone in Murray Road to make sure that that crossing is safe and secure. Okay. So Anthony has summarised all of the findings, and that they're obviously set out here, and you've put the recommendation forward. All of those in favour? Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Did you point out?
Anybody here?
Sorry,
She can't vote.
Sorry.
I can't vote, so I'm a deputy executive member.
Thank you very much.
I love you,